Hello and welcome to my studio. In this video I'm going to show you how I made this picture. This image was produced with a combination of long exposure, studio flash and multiple captures blended together in post-production. The techniques used are useful to know as they can be applied to many types of subject. And in this video I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. Okay, so starting with the subject then, what I'm going to use is this relatively small coin. And the idea is that I'm going to make it spin on this surface, a bit like this, that sort of thing. So what I need to do is find a way that I can capture the spin of the coin and also the coin itself and freeze the motion. So to freeze the motion I'm going to use a studio flash, and to capture the movement of the coin I'm going to use a continuous LED light. Okay, so to start with the camera I'm going to use this full frame digital SLR with a 24-70 zoom lens on the front of it and a flash sync trigger on the top. The camera itself is tethered into Capture One software, so it's easy to assess the results as I go along. Now I've previously set this tripod at the front here, so I'll just pop the camera on the tripod. Okay, and now I'm just going to look through the viewfinder. I'm going to set up the shot. So I'm just going to move the coin and put it in the middle of the image, something like that. And then I'm just going to zoom the lens in to about the 50mm mark. About there. Place the coin in the middle, and we'll just make sure that's focused, like that. Okay, so with all that done, I can turn the camera on, and you can see that the software has recognized the camera, and this is showing me all the settings that's on the camera at the moment. So that's in full manual mode, 1/250th of a second, 100 ISO at f8. Now I'm going to need to modify those settings a bit because I want to be able to capture the movement in the coin. So 1/250th of a second is going to be far too quick for that. But what I can do is leave that as it is for the time being, just to set up the flash element of the lighting, which is what I'm going to do next. So for that I'm going to use this Profoto D2 Studio head. This is 1000 joules, and on the front of that I've got a zoom reflector. So I'll just place this just on the corner of this table, out here somewhere, like that, relatively close in. We'll just turn that on. So I'll turn on the flash sync trigger. I'll just do a test just to make sure that's talking to it, which it is. Okay, so now I'll just grab an image. Okay, and we can see that we have a fairly unremarkable picture of a coin. It's actually quite difficult to tell very much from this, but I would think that that is a little overexposed. What I'm actually going to do, just to help the image come along a little, is I'm just going to temporarily put a clip on the side of the coin, like this, just so it'll stand up on its own, like that. We'll just place that about there somewhere. I'll just check that in the viewfinder. I can see it just needs a little adjustment of focus, just to make sure it's in the right sort of place, something like that. That's looking good. Okay, so the other thing that I want to do, because the coin is going to be spinning and dynamically moving, I need to give myself as big a depth of field as possible. So what I'm going to do to start with is just increase the aperture from f8 up to f16. That should give me a bigger depth of field. and obviously it's going to take some of the energy out of the light. So what we can do now is just grab another image just to see what it looks like. So that's much more like it. That's the right sort of density, I think. So for the flash, that's it. The exposure is set, really. So what I need to do now is think about how I'm going to light it with a continuous light. Now I want the continuous light to be in more or less the same position as this. So what I'm going to do is make use of one of these LED lights, and I'm just going to move this into position. Okay, that looks like it's in about the right sort of place. So I'll just plug that in, just with this mains cord here. And we'll turn that up, like so. Now this is an Arri L7, and this is the equivalent of about 1,000 watts of tungsten light. So if you had a 1,000 watt tungsten light, you get the same amount of energy coming out of it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just zoom that in a little, just to concentrate the beam, like so. And we'll just fine tune where that goes. Something like that. Okay, so with that all on now, what I can now do is lower the shutter speed so that I can get some dynamic into the picture. So instead of going for 250th of a second, what I'm going to do is take that down to, shall we say, a 30th of a second? Something like that. Now if I just take that now, the house lights will have quite a large effect on the picture. So I'm afraid I'm going to need to turn them out. There we go. So with the house lights out, what I can do now is I'll just take up an image from the computer, like so, and there we go. And you should be able to see that there's a bit of a colour shift going on there. Now that is because this light at the moment is set to a tungsten colour temperature. So what I'm going to do is just increase the colour temperature from 3200 Kelvin up to 5600 Kelvin, which is more like daylight. I'm also just going to temporarily turn the flash off, just so that I capture purely the continuous light. There, and that's showing quite a good exposure, I think. So with those little experiments out of the way, I can turn the studio flash back on again, like so. I'll take the clip off the coin and we'll go for a proper test. So what I'm going to do is spin the coin and hopefully grab an image when it's in the right position. There's a bit of trial and error in this. There we go, let's just try that again. There we go, right. So we'll just have a look at those. Yes, and you can see in this one, you've got the spinning coin and you've got the coin itself. And in this one too, you've got the spinning of the coin, the edges, and the coin itself. So we're not a million miles away from the right sort of exposures. Okay, so with that done, what I'll do now is I'll just give this one last wipe down just to remove any bits of dust that may have landed on it, like so. And now we'll just spin the coin and take some pictures. I'll need to grab quite a few due to the random nature of this type of photography. So what I'm doing is just grabbing an image when I think the coin is in something like the right position. And obviously I'm going to need quite a few. Okay, that should be enough. So with that, I'll turn the house lights back on. There we go. And we'll just assess what we've captured. So if I just go quickly through these, you can see that we have quite a lot of different pictures of coins in various states of spinning and position to have a look through. So what I'll do is pick maybe 8 of those pictures, and I'll put those into Photoshop and we'll do the post-production. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and I've loaded up actually 12 of the images that I captured. So in order to assess which ones are going to be of any use for this particular exercise, what I'm going to do is make a new file of all of the images blended together so I can assess which ones I actually want. And the way I'm going to do that is just go up to File here, come down to Scripts, down to Load Files into Stack, ask it to add the open files, and just click on OK. And what that will do is Photoshop will go through and put each file on a different layer in a new document, which is this one at the top here. So here are all of the images that I captured. So I don't need the camera originals anymore, so I can just close all those down, leaving the new file at the top. Okay, so now if I just make sure that the top layer is selected, go down to one up from the bottom layer, and holding down the Shift key on the keyboard, just left click the mouse, and that will select all the layers in between. So with all these now selected, I'll just change the blending mode from normal to lighten. And what that will do is give me the same effect as if I had a multiple exposure of all these images. Okay, so in order to assess which ones I might want, what I'm going to do is turn off the majority of them, like so. So we can just have a look at each one and how it interacts with the others. So if I just add these one at a time, like this, take some of the top ones out while I'm going, you can see the sort of effect that can be built up. It's possibly too many there, not too sure about that. That's looking quite nice. Just try adding one of these. Yes, I think that one's quite nice, an outlier on the side here. Okay, so I've actually got 5 of the possible 12 selected in this image. But you can also see that there's an awful lot of scuff marks and so on the actual background. So it'd be a nice idea to get rid of those. So what I'm going to do is I'll just turn the visibility off on all but the very bottom one, and then this one I'm just going to add an adjustment layer to that, and that would be a levels adjustment. So the first thing I'm going to do is just pick a new black point, probably somewhere around here, like that, and I might pick a new white point as well, which would be just in there, just to brighten it up ever so slightly. Okay, so that has now added those adjustments to this very bottom layer. But you can also see that there's various bits of scuff marks still left. So what I'm going to do, just click on that actual layer, and now I'm just going to sample the area of black which we've got up here, just with the sample tool like this, and then with a fairly large brush, something like that, what I'm going to do is just paint out most of this apart from the bit that I actually want. I'm using a very soft edge so that it blends in quite nicely with the rest of the image, like that. Okay, and now I can do the same sort of thing to the other layers. Just turn that one off. So all the layers that I want, I can now just grab that, add an adjustment layer to it, and do a very similar thing. So this adjustment layer will actually affect everything which is underneath it, but I just want it to be linked to this particular layer, not the very bottom one, just this one. So in order to do that, you just click this icon here, which will then lock it to this particular layer, and work your way up the stack. Okay, so once all that's done, just go back down and turn on all the layers that you need. There we go. So I think that's coming along quite nicely. The next thing, and probably last thing to do, just pick a crop. Obviously mine's going to be for the video, so I'm doing 16:9, but just pick a crop that will suit your subject. I might just square that up ever so slightly. Just like that. That looks a bit better. And there we have it. So by combining several exposures together in this way, we've been able to add some real dynamism to the picture. And all in all, I think that's worked quite well. Okay, I hope you enjoyed seeing how I made that image, and if you like watching these sort of things, do click on the other pictures as they appear, and don't forget to subscribe. Oh, and click the like button. Thank you very much for watching.